I used to think the worst kind of heartbreak was losing someone you love. But I learned the truth the hard way. It's discovering the person you built your life with was already gone long before they physically left this world. My ex-husband's death wasn't the end of our pain. It was the beginning of hell. After over 16 years of marriage, I thought I knew the man sleeping next to me. We had 2 daughters, Emma, my quiet old soul at 15, and Lily, the unstoppable whirlwind who just turned 12. My parents had passed when the girls were little, so my husband's parents, Margaret and Robert, were the only grandparents they knew. Our life looked ordinary from the outside. We lived in a cozy suburb, the kind where everyone knows who bakes the best pies and which houses to avoid on Halloween. My husband, Daniel, had a stable job in finance, and I worked in education. Not glamorous, but steady. We were the kind of couple people pointed to and said, "See, that's what a perfect family looks like." But perfection, as I'd learn, was nothing but an expertly arranged stage set hiding rot underneath. It started with a late-night text, one of those half-conscious moments when your gut just tells you something's off. Daniel's phone buzzed on the nightstand. He was in the shower. Normally, I wouldn't have cared, but the preview lit up the screen with a heart emoji and a name I didn't recognize. Curiosity morphed into dread. One swipe, then another. A floodgate of filth opened. Messages that made my stomach churn. Photos. Hotel receipts. "Can't wait to see you again, baby." A thread stretching back months. The woman wasn't some stranger. She was a receptionist from Daniel's office. Melanie, 28 years old, bright laughter. I'd met her twice, once at a company dinner where she complimented my dress. Fake, glittering sincerity. When I confronted Daniel, he didn't deny it, didn't even flinch. "It just happened, Anna," he said. "You've been so cold lately. I needed to feel wanted again." Cold. I remember laughing, the kind of hollow sound that comes from somewhere between fury and heartbreak. I had carried the emotional weight of our family for years while he played martyr. Cold? No, I just stopped dimming myself so he could shine. I told him I wanted a divorce. That's when Margaret and Robert, his saintly, scripture-quoting parents, swooped in like vultures dressed as angels. They told me I was overreacting, that I shouldn't throw away a Christian marriage because of a mistake. A mistake doesn't result in 2 children. Because yes, while I was untangling myself from that betrayal, I discovered Melanie was pregnant, not with 1 child, but twins. I remember sitting on the bedroom floor, surrounded by divorce papers and old family photos, when that news sank in. I couldn't breathe. My daughters found out a week later because I couldn't hide the despair. Emma overheard an argument. Lily saw me crying. They put it together faster than I could form the words. That night, my eldest said something that still breaks me. "Mom, why did Dad have to pick them instead of us?" How do you answer a child when every truth hurts them more? From there, everything unraveled fast. Daniel moved out. His parents stopped calling unless it was to lecture me. Our home turned quiet, like grief had settled in permanently. Therapy helped the girls, barely. Then, last year, Daniel died in a car accident with Melanie. Instant, both gone. The twins, 2 baby boys, survived, but were left orphaned. I expected to feel angry, or maybe relieved. What I felt instead was numb. Death closes doors that conversations might have cracked open. But fate wasn't done testing us yet. The chaos started the week after the funeral. Margaret showed up at my door holding legal papers and a plate of cookies, like that would make it better. "We're petitioning for custody," she said, voice trembling with holy indignation, "of our granddaughters. It's what Danny would have wanted." I blinked at her, stunned. "You mean the same man who cheated, lied, and abandoned his own family?" Her eyes snapped cold.
You're bitter, Anna. You're poisoning those girls with your resentment. You forget, they have our blood. They need guidance, structure, Christian values. My laughter wasn't kind this time. You can file whatever you want, but you're not taking my daughters. Not now, not ever. That was the first battle, the legal one, but it wasn't the last. They started showing up everywhere, at school pickups, our church, even the grocery store once. All smiles for the public, quiet venom when no one was watching. They wanted control over me, my daughters, and even the narrative, and they weren't above manipulation to get it. Fast forward a few weeks later, life goes on, right? Or tries to. Lily was turning 12, so I promised her a trip to our local weekend market. It's this colorful sprawl of farmers, artists, the smell of fresh bread and citrus and roasting coffee beans in the air. For one morning, I just wanted normalcy, joy, unfiltered by tragedy. I gave her a small budget, a birthday treat. Go buy whatever you want, kiddo. Naturally, she went after chocolate. I wandered for a bit, tasting jams with Emma, until an hour passed and no sign of Lily. I called once, twice, then my phone buzzed. Her number, but her voice, it wasn't what I expected. Mom? Her breathing was shaky, then a soft sob. Some ladies are yelling at me. My chest went cold. Where are you? I didn't even wait for the answer before I started running. My heart pounded like a war drum as I bolted between stalls. And then I saw her, my little girl, backed against a vendor's table, crying, surrounded by 6 women, all older, all wearing the same self-righteous expression I'd seen at my ex-in-law's old church. I heard one of them sneering, "You're a disgrace to your family, young lady. Your grandmother raised your father better than that." Another said, "Your poor baby brothers lost their parents, and you can't even be kind?" The sight shattered something inside me. Every ounce of maternal restraint evaporated. I pushed between them, heat pulsing through my ears. "Get away from my daughter!" One of them, I recognized her actually, Susan, a woman who used to sing praise songs next to my ex's mother every Sunday, crossed her arms. "We're just trying to help her find forgiveness," she said. "Your daughters have been awful to their grandparents. It's cruel." My voice dropped lower. "You have no idea what's cruel." Lily clung to my hand, shoulders shaking. I told Emma to take her to pay for her things and wait in the car. Then I turned back to the women who dared to make my child cry. "You think I owe you an explanation? That you can corner a 12-year-old to fix your gossip fantasies? My daughters are healing from what that family did to us, what he did to us. You want to preach Christian morals? Start with compassion." One of them scoffed. "You weren't exactly a good Christian wife." That line, that was it, the match to the powder keg. "You're right," I said, "because a good Christian wife doesn't allow her husband to screw around and humiliate her while his parents cheer him on." You could have heard a pin drop until Susan hissed, "Blasphemy." The argument spiraled. Voices got louder. Vendors started watching. Someone called security, and we were all told to leave the market. I could feel eyes on me as we watched to the car, those women following like a pack of judgmental vultures. I didn't give them the satisfaction of looking back. But later that night, when the girls were finally asleep, my phone lit up with messages from an old friend, Michael, someone still active in that same church. He'd seen something I needed to know. "Anna, I'm so sorry. You need to check the church's Facebook group." I opened it. My stomach flipped. There it was, a long, dramatic post written by Margaret. It painted her and Robert as helpless, devout grandparents cast aside by their heartless daughter-in-law and her corrupted children. She wrote that I'd refused to let them see their orphaned grandsons, that I left them penniless, and, painfully, that I hated the boys because they were male. But the worst part? She claimed the affair children weren't the result of infidelity. According to her story, Melanie was our surrogate, that I'd rejected God's miracle because I was jealous to the bone. The comment section was a cesspool of sanctimonious outrage. "Praying for you, sweet Margaret. The Lord will humble that wicked woman." It went on for hundreds of replies. I sat there, trembling. All the humiliation I thought had died with Daniel clawed its way back up my throat. Lies spread faster than truth ever could. My daughters could see this. They could read those words and think the world already picked a side. Then something inside me hardened, slowly, coldly, like a calm after a storm, but darker. There's only so much you can take before the part of you that still pleads for fairness just breaks. "You want to play holy victim?" I whispered into the quiet of my kitchen. "Fine, let's play."
Sleep didn't come that night. I laid there in the dark, staring at the ceiling fan as it spun slow circles over my head, the quiet hum mocking the chaos in my mind. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that Facebook post. My name tangled with lies, my daughters painted as heartless villains. When you've already buried betrayal once, seeing it dug up again by people who should have known better, it breaks something deeper than heartbreak. It breaks trust in justice itself. By morning, I was running on caffeine, anger, and instinct. The girls were quiet at breakfast, sensing something was off. Emma scrolled her phone in silence, face pale. I didn't have to ask why. "Don't look at it," I said softly. "She's telling people we're monsters," she whispered. "People at school go to that church, Mom." Lily added, "Why do they hate us? We didn't do anything wrong." There it was, the question every good person asks when the world turns unfair. Why us? And there never is a comforting answer, only the realization that sometimes cruelty doesn't need a reason, just an audience. I hugged them both. "Because they don't have the truth yet," I said. But in my head, I added, "And when they do, I'll make sure they never forget it." That week became a storm of whispers. People at work looked at me differently. A few parents from Lily's school withdrew playdate invites. It's amazing how fast people turn judgmental when they think they're choosing moral high ground. The gossip even bled into church groups I'd never met, sanctimonious strangers posting Bible verses about forgiveness beneath Margaret's sob story. The hypocrisy would have been funny if it didn't hurt so much. But the ex-in-laws weren't satisfied with real pity. They wanted real leverage. 3 days later, I came home to find Margaret and Robert in my driveway. Margaret was dressed like she was heading to a funeral. Black hat, black coat, dramatic scarf fluttering. Robert stood beside her with a folder clutched in wrinkled hands. "Anna," she called as I stepped out of the car. "Please, we need to talk." "I don't think we do," I said, keeping my voice even. "It's not about us. It's about the boys." Her tone softened, almost pleading. "They're suffering. The relatives who took them in don't have much. If you would just open your heart." I laughed, short and sharp. "My heart? They're not my responsibility, Margaret. You should have thought about that before defending Daniel's lies." Her mask cracked for a second. "That woman, she seduced my son." There it is, the same excuse for every man who makes choices and gets caught. Robert stepped in then, voice trembling with rehearsed righteousness. "You were supposed to be his wife until death. The Lord doesn't honor divorce." I looked straight at him. "Then it's lucky death came before the divorce was finalized, isn't it?" The words hung heavy. Margaret gasped like I'd slapped her. Robert muttered something about sin and punishment. I just walked past them into the house, locking the door behind me. My hands were shaking, but not from fear anymore. It was something colder. Focus. Resolve. From behind the door, I heard Margaret sob dramatically to the neighbor. "She's turning our grandchildren against us." I almost smiled. That's not even the half of it, I thought. I tried to focus on normalcy for the next few days.
Work, dinner, helping Emma with essays, Lily with art projects. But gossip travels like wildfire, and soon enough, little flare-ups reached our doorstep. One afternoon, I found a note folded under my windshield wiper. No name, just black letters scrawled across paper. You can't keep them from their family forever. God sees what you do. Harmless words, maybe, but that God sees part is code for judgment in those circles. They use faith like a weapon, guilt wrapped in piety. That night, after tucking the girls in, I sat at the dining table and scrolled through the church's online group again. Margaret was still milking sympathy, posting pictures of Daniel as a child, of Robert holding the orphaned twins, captions like, "Even in our golden years, we stay faithful. Love always wins." And under each post were dozens of people defending her, condemning me. I could have ignored it, deleted my account, walked away. But every line, every twisted version of our story was fuel on a fire I hadn't planned to start, but now wanted to finish. That's when I began collecting things. Daniel had left behind a laptop, the one he used for work, but also, as it turned out, for his distractions. I hadn't touched it since his death. Grief does that. It freezes certain objects in time, makes them feel radioactive. But now, it was evidence. The password took 2 tries. His birth date still worked, and there it was. Messages, photos, emails, the whole sordid timeline. Him telling Melanie, she'll never forgive me if she finds out. Mom and Dad think this is just stress. Screenshots of his parents actually encouraging him to keep both families happy until the storm passes. I felt sick. Not shocked anymore, just numb with recognition. They'd always known. They'd chosen denial out of convenience. In another folder, I found call logs, messages saved for safety. My safety, from the time Margaret had harassed me during the divorce. She had texted things like, "God hates broken homes," and once, "You're tearing him apart. You'll regret what you're doing to your girls." I took photos of everything, organized them, dated them. Suddenly, my anger had something it didn't before: structure. Over the next week, I reached out quietly to a few people. A former neighbor who'd witnessed Daniel and Melanie together before the truth came out, a colleague from his office who confirmed the HR scandal that preceded his stress leave, and most vitally, a church member who still liked me enough to be honest. Michael. He was one of the good ones, still believed in faith, not weaponization. When he answered my call, his voice was gentle. "Anna, I figured you'd reach out. I'm so sorry about how they've twisted things." "Michael, you've seen the posts?" I asked. "Everyone has. Margaret's practically running a crusade. Then you'll understand why I'm done staying quiet." He hesitated. "What are you planning?" I smiled to myself. "Just the truth." Before hanging up, he said something that stuck with me. "You won't need to lie, Anna. Just show them who these people really are. The church punishes lies more than sin itself." And that was the key. I didn't need to punish them. I just needed to let the truth do its work in a place obsessed with appearances. Still, carrying that kind of plan around feels heavy. Every night when the girls went to bed, I'd sit alone with my laptop, sorting evidence into folders like chapters of a story no one wanted told. Texts, photos, financial proof of his affair's expense, even digital receipts showing Margaret transferring money to Melanie's account, helping her manage the baby's needs while Daniel still lived under our roof. Each discovery tightened something around my heart. I wasn't doing this out of spite anymore. This was about justice, the kind that doesn't come from judges or sermons, but from truth laid bare. I began to fantasize about how it might happen. Maybe a quiet leak to the pastor, maybe a shared confession that spread faster than gossip ever could. But maybe wasn't enough. People like Margaret didn't respond to subtlety. They thrived on drama and spectacle. So that's what I would give them. The final straw came a week later. It was a Sunday morning, the first time I felt confident enough to take my daughters out again. We decided to have breakfast in town. Pancakes, orange juice, laughter. For once, it felt normal again. Until an older woman approached our table. Sorry to interrupt. Her smile was sugary but venomous underneath. "You're Anna, right? Daniel's widow?" I froze. "Yes." She leaned in, whispering like it was gossip to be shared, not accusation. "You should really come to service sometime. We've been praying for you that you find in your heart to forgive yourself." The gall of it. For what exactly? "For keeping 2 innocent babies away from their bloodline," she said sweetly, "and for turning those poor little girls of yours against loving grandparents. It must be a heavy burden." She patted my hand and walked off. Emma stared after the woman. Lily clenched her fists under the table. That was it, the point of no return. No more restraint, no more silent suffering. If Margaret and her loyal flock wanted to worship false stories, I'd turn their altar into a mirror, and by the time I was done, their church wouldn't just see the truth, they'd choke on it. It's strange how calm hatred can feel once you've stopped trying to be the better person. The moment I decided to retaliate, my grief finally went quiet, like a radio finally tuned off the static. All that remained was focus. Cold, surgical focus. For weeks, I'd lived under the shadow of my ex-in-laws' narrative. They painted themselves as saints bathing in candlelight while they dragged my name through mud. But I'd finally realized truth isn't just a virtue, it's a blade, and in the right hands, it cuts exactly where it needs to. That night after the breakfast incident, I waited until the girls fell asleep.
Then I walked to the kitchen table, laptop open, folders spread like evidence in a courtroom. I stared at Daniel's smirking face in one of those old photos, family vacation, the year before everything fell apart. His smile looked harmless there, almost kind, but now I couldn't unsee the rot behind it, the deception, the sheer cowardice. My hands hovered over the keyboard, then started typing. I created 4 folders: infidelity evidence, parental involvement, church hypocrisy, emotional abuse. Each one was a chapter in a story no one was ready for, but everyone would read. Inside those folders, I placed digital copies of the text messages, confession screenshots, and all the incriminating moments from Daniel's hidden life. Then I printed them all, on crisp, white, high-quality paper. I'd pay extra later for glossy ink, because after everything Margaret had put me through, her shame deserved premium presentation. While the printer hummed, I thought through every detail: reputations, timing, symbolism. If I was going to drop this truth bomb in their world, it had to hit exactly where it would hurt most. And where else but their temple of piety, the church? Monday afternoon, I called Michael. He answered immediately. "Anna, I need a favor," I said. "A small one, really. I just need access to the back desk at the church where they keep the hymnals." He hesitated. "That's a pretty specific request. I just want to return some donated books." Technically not a lie. A pause, then a sigh. "Anna, you're not planning anything reckless, are you?" "Reckless?" I smiled. "No, just honest." He didn't press further, maybe because deep down he knew truth was the one thing that could fix what lies had broken. The next few days became an art project. I went to the print shop during my lunch break. The owner, a quiet man named Raj, nodded when I told him I needed family documents printed with utmost clarity. Stacks of pages fed through the glossy printer. Daniel caught kissing Melanie on our living room couch. Screenshots of him telling her, "Mom says you're better for me than Anna ever was." Text threads with his parents gleefully gossiping about my jealous tantrums. Emails where Margaret called me a curse sent to test their son's faith. I slid them into transparent sleeves, organizing each like exhibits in a trial. Then I labeled each binder carefully in gold script, a testament of faith and truth.
On the cover, a harmless-looking floral pattern, something you'd swear was church approved. On the first page, Daniel and Melanie mid-kiss, clear as daylight. Beneath it, a caption written in polite, restrained handwriting. Daniel and Melanie's true covenant, with the blessing of Margaret and Robert. Subtle, cruel, perfect. As the nights passed, I got lost in the process. Revenge became meditative. I could hear the faint click of scissors as I trimmed edges, the scrape of glue on paper, the soundtrack of justice. But it wasn't blind fury anymore. It was controlled redemption. In my head, I kept replaying every time my daughters cried because of those people, every time Margaret called my girls ungrateful for wanting peace, or when Robert implied I'd turned them against God. The binders became more than evidence. They became closure in physical form. Still, doubt tried to creep in occasionally, that thin, reedy voice whispering, "This might be too far." But then I'd remember that 12-year-old voice on the phone sobbing, "Mom, they're yelling at me," and the hesitation vanished. Saturday, the day of reckoning. That morning I woke before dawn. Steam curled from my coffee mug while the world outside still slept. My binders, 24 in total, sat neatly stacked on the table. Each identical, each filled with truth disguised as devotion. Emma wandered in, yawning. "You're up early." I smiled faintly. "Just organizing some things." She looked at the binders, curious. "Those for the market?" I shook my head. Something better. She studied me for a moment, like she could sense the strange calm radiating off me. "You're smiling again, Mom. I didn't think you could." Her words landed softly, a reminder of how far we'd come, and how far I was willing to protect that smile. After breakfast, I packed the binders neatly into a reusable bag and drove across town. My GPS took me past the same road Daniel used to commute through every day. For a moment, I glanced at his old office building, shutters still drawn, no sign of life. Just a ghost of a man who thought lies could last forever. When I pulled into the small church parking lot, everything felt eerily still. Early sun pierced through stained glass, scattering patches of pale color across the entrance. The sound of a choir practicing somewhere inside echoed softly, voices rising like prayers, completely unaware of what was about to drop into their midst. I walked in quietly, nodding at a greeter who handed me a hymnal. My heart beat steady, not fast. It was the first time in months that anxiety didn't shake my hands. Behind the pews near the back wall stood the humble wooden desk that held spare hymn books, the same place Michael had mentioned. I glanced around. Only a few people were preparing the altar. No one paid me any attention. I slipped open the desk, slid in the stack of floral binders among the hymnals, and closed it gently. To any unsuspecting churchgoer, they looked like just another donation. New song packets for the faithful. Perfect camouflage. Then I left, calm as a whisper. Outside, the winter air bit against my cheeks, but inside I was burning quietly, not with anger anymore, but something far colder. Anticipation. That night I got the first call. "Michael, they found them." His voice was a mix of awe and panic. "Anna, what did you do?" "Just left something honest where dishonor was preached." "You need to know. People are furious. Those binders didn't stay hidden long. Mrs. Patton grabbed one thinking it was a hymnal, opened it right in front of her prayer group. By the time service started, half the congregation had seen everything." "Half?" "By the end of service, all of them." I couldn't help but smile. Praise be. The church's gossip network put social media to shame. By evening, Facebook was exploding with posts, screenshots, and debates that ranged from horrified disbelief to righteous fury. But this time, the fury wasn't aimed at me. It was aimed squarely at Daniel and his parents. Parishioners quoted scripture about deceit, betrayal, hypocrisy, They demanded an explanation. Some even tagged Margaret and Robert directly. How could you lie about your son's sin and weaponized faith like that? I scrolled through the chaos, sipping tea. Each comment was a confession of their downfall. That I wasn't done. Not yet. Because the church could be forgiving if repentance followed. I wanted to make sure no repentance washed away what they'd done to my girls. So I uploaded one more thing, anonymously, to the same Facebook group that Margaret had poisoned weeks ago. A scanned copy of an email, one she'd written to me days after Daniel's death. If only those wretched girls hadn't told you about the affair, he might still be alive. They ruined his last months, and now they've ruined our family. I didn't add any commentary, no caption, just that line, bold and unfiltered, stamped with the truth of her own words. Within hours, you could feel the tide shift. Sympathy curdled into disgust. The halo around her saintly widow act crumbled. And I slept soundly for the first time in a year.
When I woke up the next morning, my phone looked like it had caught fire overnight. Dozens of notifications, missed calls, messages from numbers I didn't recognize. I didn't rush to check them. I brewed my coffee instead. Slow, patient, because some victories are best enjoyed in silence. When I finally opened Facebook, the tidal wave of chaos was breathtaking. Margaret's once revered name, the cornerstone of her little, faithful empire, now sat at the center of a public implosion. Half the congregation had turned against her. Screenshots of the binder pages were everywhere. Members debated whether the church should revoke her positions from the community board. The comments were an orchestra of shock, betrayal, and disgust. "Did you see those emails?" one post read. "Unbelievable, preaching holiness while helping her son cheat." Another said, "That poor woman and her daughters. I believed Margaret's stories. I feel sick." That was my favorite. For weeks, her story had spread like wildfire. Now, truth was the rain they never saw coming. By noon, Michael called again. "She didn't come to service today," he said, quietly. Neither of them did. Pastor Reynolds asked the congregation to pray for those who've lost their way through deceit. Everyone knew who he meant. I leaned back in my chair. Guess repentance starts at home. "Anna," he hesitated, concern threading his tone. "Some people still think you went too far." "I didn't lie," I said simply. "I just let them taste their own medicine, without sugar." There was a pause, then a soft sigh. You know, part of me thinks God actually approved of that one. Later that afternoon, I took the girls to the park. The air felt lighter somehow, as if the cloud that had hung over us for months had finally burned off. Lily raced ahead to the swings, while Emma sat beside me on the bench, earbuds dangling, sun catching her auburn hair. She looked at me and smiled faintly. "People have stopped whispering at school." "Oh," I said. "What changed?" She shrugged, eyes glinting. "Guess they found out Grandma wasn't so holy after all." We both laughed, quietly at first, then louder than we had in months. It wasn't just laughter. It was release, like we were finally exhaling after holding our breath for too long. 2 weeks passed. Then came the letter. Handwritten, shaky script, sealed with a floral sticker that matched the aesthetic on Margaret's church post headers. "Anna, you've humiliated us beyond redemption. Your daughters will grow up knowing you're vindictive. You've destroyed our reputation in the only community we had left. May God forgive you, even if we cannot. Margaret." I folded the letter neatly and slid it into a drawer. Not out of guilt, but because, in its own twisted way, it was proof that she finally understood something. Humiliation only hurts when it's earned, and I didn't feel the slightest tremor of regret. A week later, I dropped by Michael's house, a rare gesture. He greeted me with a knowing look and 2 mugs of tea. "Word around town is the Hendersons are moving," he said. I blinked. "Really?" "Yeah, they've withdrawn from the church completely."
She made one last post about youth homes not respecting the elderly. Honestly, even her old friends stopped defending her. I sipped my tea. Guess prayer circles don't stop karma. He chuckled. You know what the pastor said last Sunday? Even truth, when buried under lies, will find its resurrection. Everyone clapped. He glanced at me meaningfully. I thought you should hear that. I smiled for the first time in a while, a real, unguarded smile. Days rolled into weeks. The legal battle over custody quietly crumbled on their end. The court dismissed their petition once their financial and emotional instability came to light. The lies in their statements suddenly less credible once the church turned its back. One afternoon, our lawyer called. "It's over," she said. "The grandparents withdrew their claim. Probably don't want media attention." I thanked her and hung up. Then I just sat in silence, staring out the window where sunlight hit the curtains. The feeling wasn't triumph. It was something deeper, something like peace. But what I didn't expect was what came after. Because revenge, when done right, doesn't just destroy, it transforms. Emma began volunteering at a local community center. Lily restarted her therapy with renewed confidence. And me? I found myself laughing again, cooking dinner with music playing in the background, buying fresh flowers for the kitchen just because they looked happy. For the first time since Daniel's death, this house felt alive.